Welcome to High Sobriety. Our goal is to save lives and remove the stigma of addiction. Here's the host of High Sobriety, John Mabry.
Hi, welcome to Addiction Campuses High Sobriety podcast. I'm your grateful recovering host, John Mabry, and thrilled, excited, and anxious to hear more about our guest. It's Phillip Andrew. Phillip is a media and personal development coach. He has 15 years of live performance and public speaking experience and is often asked to present at high schools and colleges across the country. He's also got 10 years of addiction recovery experience, 9 years background in producing digital television content. He's done work for shows on Netflix, YouTube Red, A&E, Entertainment, Fuse, among others. And he's dedicated to helping other people through the power of storytelling and is passionate about educating, entertaining, and connecting with people in a way that encourages, empowers, and provokes insight. So, Phillip, thank you so much for joining us on Addiction Campuses High Sobriety podcast today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, man. I'm still not used to hearing all of the intro. You know, it's like every time I hear the intro, I'm always like, man, all right, cool. That sounds good. I like that.
I've done that.
Yeah, it's very cool, man. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
What's crazy is, as a person in recovery, when you look back, yes, we make bad, or I look at myself, and I look at my past, and, there's just so many splintered parts of my past that I don't want to talk about or that I'm ashamed of, or I used to be ashamed of. And it's cool when you get into recovery, you can go, you know what? Yes, I did those things, but I've also done some other, I've done some bad things, but also, some good stuff has happened too. And so, would love to be able to highlight and all the, some of the successes that you've had, and keep in mind, this is just, part of your story. You're going to keep going and doing bigger and bigger things. So that's why we want to have you on the show. We share your expertise and what you've done to help in your recovery and in your profession, and share that with other folks.
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate you letting me kind of talk on that. And, for me, it's like one of those things where I don't think that the purpose of my life was for me to have an issue with alcohol and then all of a sudden to not anymore. And then, okay, cool, I can check in and I'm done. Right. Like, I don't think that wasn't the mission. There's so much more. And I feel that, recovery has just given me such an ability, like so many people, they think about, oh man, I have to stop this thing. I have to take away this thing. They think of it subtraction. My experience in recovery, man, I just had so much more added to my life than anything that was taken away. Sure, I don't drink anymore. I don't do drugs anymore. But the life that I get to live today is all because I took those subtractions, and then we just started adding a ton of amazing stuff to my life. And I'm very, very grateful for that. Recovery was able to help me, build a life that I'm extremely proud and happy to live now. A little bit about me. Yeah, I'm out here in Los Angeles, California, originally from Detroit, Michigan, but I've been in California for almost 10 years now. And I'm a television producer, and, you kind of heard a little bit of the bio, but, that was always the dream. But for me, I grew up, growing up in Detroit. I grew up about 10 minutes from downtown Detroit on the southwest side. And, I grew up, I always joke, like I was the youngest kid on Carroll Street. I was always hanging out with the older kids, always, but then with that comes the anxiety that I'm sure a lot of people relate with. Like, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I funny enough? Am I cool enough? Am I attractive enough to hang with the big boys? Do I fit in with these guys? And so all through, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, I'm dealing with that. I also have the interesting background of my father's a retired police chief from Metro Detroit, and my mother was involved in school board. So, they were very, they were in the environment. They were, people knew them in the community. So there was that moment as a little kid, I thought, man, everyone's really paying a lot of attention to me. This world is really paying a lot of attention to me. I thought I was really important,
Yeah.
And so I started to develop anxiety over that. Like, oh, I need to be an A student. I was the kid that cried when he got his first B+. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm that kid. And, needed to be good in sports, needed to beat everyone, needed to be perfect. Perfection was such a crippling, emotion, or whatever you want to call it, just perfection. I was always chasing it. So, you add hanging out with the older kids, wanting to fit in, you add wanting to be a perfect kid when I'm around the parents. And I'm kind of like already starting to become a pretty wild little kid at 8, 9 years old, pretty in my head, I've gone back and reread things I wrote as a little kid. And I was like, man, bro, you needed to calm down. Someone needed to sit you down and chill you out. But, where I started to drink around 11 years old, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, starting young, while I was hanging out with these guys and they were 15, 16, 17, I was 10, 11, 12. So I started drinking young, and right from the jump, man, I wanted to just get wild. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to break stuff. I wanted to try to, be cool with women, right from the very jump. I remember being at a party and 11 years old, throwing up and then drinking again because everyone was saying, oh, that's cool, blah, 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 And so I was kind of messed up from the jump, dude. And then when I got to high school, the drinking kind of continued. But then my mother, when I was 14, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. And then when I was 15, a week before I turned 16, she passed away. And so you go ahead and you take a kid that's dealing with anxiety, that doesn't have coping mechanisms, that's turning to drugs and alcohol, that's very influential by peer pressure, and then boom, you add the death of a parent on it, and I'm like a perfect recipe for disaster, right? So the quick story, not getting into the drunkalog, but lots of fights, lots of hospitalizations. I got into a fight once and I had to go and get staples in the back of my head because I fell on I ran into some like a water heater in a basement, and it split my head open. And 18 crashed my car, 19 was arrested, 20 was arrested. And the problem with this whole thing is I'm still showing up as an A student. I'm still showing up on the football field, on the basketball court. So I had developed this, as a lot of us can attest, that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing, where I could perform in one area and I was allowing the successes in one area of my life to blind me to all of the failures in this very, very needed part of my life that needed some attention. And so I graduate college. I managed to graduate a semester early. I'm grinding through school. I'm excited to move to California to start this new life in entertainment. And 11 days before I moved to California, I get pulled over in the community that my dad is a retired police chief in by the newest cop on the force that didn't recognize the last name.
Oh, man.
Oh.
And it was guys were showing up, and I think they were kind of giving him a little bit of a hard time because these are guys that that seen me grow up my whole life. They knew me from 5 years old, and now here I am in the back of the squad car, and if I'm really being honest, even waking up, that they locked me up that night, and I get out, and there was even still that element of entitlement and self-centeredness that I thought, they're just going to waive this. They just were trying to teach me a lesson last night. I'm good. But thank God they didn't. And they let it ride. And I had to do the court thing. And I had to do the probation thing. I had to do the AA thing. And it absolutely saved my life. Because I was 22 years old. And I knew I had a problem, but I didn't have the strength to admit it, and I didn't know how to tell anyone. And so there was almost this feeling of relief, when I actually got to go to AA, and when people would be like, oh, you're going to AA, and I could be like, oh yeah, well, I'm doing it for the courts, man. The courts, bro. I'm just trying to scheme this system, man. If they see me going to AA meetings, they'll probably think that I'm trying to stop, and I'm just doing it to scheme. Always trying to scheme the system, but man, did I need it. And for me, it was kind of I lived so long with that mask of, here's who you get to see. Here's the Phillip Andrew you get to see, the athlete, the happy-go-lucky kid, the kid that you think has everything, the poster child. And that gap between that kid and who I really felt deep down inside, that gap just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And when I got to AA, it was my first time that I felt love in a way where I didn't feel that I needed to earn it from somebody. I didn't feel that I didn't need to prove on the court that I was worthy. I didn't need to prove on the football field. I didn't need to prove in the classroom. I didn't need to prove at the party to be accepted. It was the first time in my life that I met strangers that just loved me where I was at. And it was a shock, because I hadn't experienced that from anything outside of family before. And it allowed me to stop putting that mask on, and I was able to finally feel like I was seen, and people could see not the athlete, not the kid on the honor roll, not any of these things, not the cop's kid, but they could see Phillip as a really sad kid who lost his mom and was very broken and was very hurt and didn't know where to turn and didn't know how to deal with these feelings of anger and frustration and confusion and shame and guilt. And I could finally be seen as who I really felt. And it was life-changing, absolutely monumentally life-changing. And I just never wanted to go back. I couldn't imagine ever going back, man. Honestly, to have that experience, it's been absolutely amazing. So I'll stop there, because that was the real quick intro that takes a very long time. So, but that's me, man. So, that's kind of my story.
Man, that's awesome. I haven't related to probably anybody that I've met in recovery as much as how I can relate to your story. So much of me is in you, that sense of entitlement from early on, like putting on the face for everybody else, look good out here in the public, and then behind the scenes, just, living in fear and anxiety and insecurity, and got to look like the poster child. And then even when I showed up in the 12-step meetings for, probably a year or two, I still had a mask on. I still felt like I had to, when I would share, I was always thinking of what I was going to say and how I was going to say, and what order I was going to say it in, because I still had that mask on. Like I have to say this perfectly because I want everybody to like me. It's all about, I want you to like me because I don't really like myself. So I need you to like me. And I had a powerful moment where a counselor in one of the treatment centers I went to was working through my step work in front of the group, and he just says, he threw his book down, and he's like, John, I'm going to tell you this because nobody out there in the real world is going to tell you. So if you don't know Phillip, I have a prosthetic leg from a car accident in my senior year in college, which kind of started my addiction. It didn't kind of start, it really did start my addiction drunk-a-log. But he just goes, I'm going to tell you something that nobody out there is going to tell you. He's like, all you are is a crippled drunk.
Wow.
Like, you're just a crippled drunk. Because, I've done TV. I used to live out in LA and worked on a number of projects. And the one I'm most proud of is the one word that I have in the movie, Superbad. I have one word in Superbad with Jonah Hill. And,
amazing.
And I went into treatment. I went into that treatment center within the first hour of meeting two of the guys that were there. I made sure that they knew that I was in the movie Superbad. I'm just so insecure. I'm like, you need to know what I've done because I'm not, I can't handle myself. And so they brought that up. They were like in the meeting when the therapist threw his book down, he's like, man, you're just a crippled drunk. And they were like, yeah, man, within the first hour of meeting you, you made sure that we knew what you've done. I was like, oh my gosh, dude. So anyway, all that to say, I can completely relate to a lot of your story.
Dude, I had I was just talking with some friends about this the other day. Like I talk about that moment getting into AA like it was this monumental shift, but like it did take time, right? Like it didn't happen meeting number one, right? Like it took time. And I'll be honest with you guys, like it took me 4.5 years to start really going to complete the steps. Right? It took me 4.5 years to get a sponsor, and I do not recommend that to anybody at all. Get in, start working the steps, get a sponsor. But I was still trying to scheme and figure out ways that I could do it my way. Yep. And I had a lot of moments in those years where, I wasn't drinking, but I was definitely a dry drunk. I definitely wasn't a happy person, a fun person to be around. And it's so funny because I remember I had a moment, I was at a meeting and I was the same way, man. I wanted to I wanted to impress you with my 2-minute share. Like I wanted you guys, I wanted doves to fly, and I wanted rays of sunshine to come down from heaven and bless everyone just for them hearing me speak. You know what
Exactly,
I'm saying?
right?
I'm that guy, dude. And I was talking at a meeting, and I'm 4.5 years in, and this guy walks up to me after the meeting. I've never met this man. Big guy, 6'4", walks up to me, goes, "Hey man, I just want to let you know you're full of shit and you're flirting with disaster, and you need to get a sponsor, and you need to get one now, because 5 years in is dangerous without a sponsor."
Wow.
And I was like, "What? Wait! You're not impressed with me? Wait, what's happening right now?
Cannot compute.
You were serious? Oh my God! Yeah, system overload. What is happening?" And and he was my first sponsor.
No way.
He took me through the steps. He's the first man I sat with him and shared everything. I put it all on the line. Any type of any type of sexual shame that I had, any type, just any shames, any guilts, things that I felt terrible about. He knew it. I put it all on the line with him, and that was like when I went and did those steps. Going to meetings is amazing, and I love it, and it's a pillar of the program. Connecting with other people, it's a pillar. But when you get into the work and you start identifying these things, and I started recognizing all of this stuff that happened to me when I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and that it was still impacting the way that I was thinking in my decision making as a grown man. It was like, whoa, what is going on here? These things are still alive and well deep down, and I'm not free from them. And until I started working the steps and talking with him and sharing all the stuff that had happened, and that I felt, like I said, that I felt this shame for, that felt this guilt over, had these fears. Oh my goodness, the freedom that came from that was just monumental, man. And I'll always be indebted to him. And he's a great man. I have a new sponsor now, and we moved into different areas, but man, what an amazing man he was. And I always laugh, like, I have to remember that, because there are times where if I'm not, like, sometimes I realize I need to be more proactive, because while amazing it was that he hit me up at 4.5 years, like, who knows what had happened if I hadn't run into him. And it's like, I can't just always go through life hoping that the world is going to give me what I need. And I needed to be more proactive. But yeah, man, that was such an amazing experience. And, it was one of those moments where I didn't get what I wanted, but I got exactly what I needed.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Man, I'm going to allow myself to be a little vulnerable here. Been in recovery since 2011, but not continual sobriety through that time. But here I am, 2.5 years out of Addiction Campuses Treehouse facility, which is our facility located outside of Dallas, and it is the most compassionate treatment center that I had ever been to, and that's why I immediately walked in with a resume asking for a job as soon as I got out of there, because I saw how much care and compassion that they put into all the clients there. And so, but here I am 2.5 years out, and I just got some assignments from my sponsor yesterday, because I've got some areas that are kind of creeping up. It's almost like what I'm finding is like whack-a-mole. You put one fire out, and then something else pops up, and then you can put some focus on that, and something else pops up. I mean, just kind of the addictive personality that I have, and just the way I'm wired. It's just all you fix one thing and something else pops up. So anyway, I've got a couple areas in my life that have been causing some issues that I'm having to go back and do some step work around right now. And so I guess I don't know why initially felt ashamed to say that. I guess because I have a podcast, so people need to think that I have it all together.
Yeah.
So, but it's not the case. I mean,
that's that imposter syndrome. That's that imposter syndrome that tells us that, like, oh man, we're a fraud. I have that I have that all the time where it's like, oh man, I'm a fraud. Like I show up, and it happens in everything. I show up on my first day of set. I've produced a handful of TV shows. I show up my first day and I'm like, oh my God, this is the one where they realize that I'm just a kid from Detroit that doesn't know what he's doing. It's like I have that happen in my career. I have it happen when I'm coaching people. I have it happen in, speaking, all of these things. And it's just that craziness of our brain, like how it works. And now, we have the tools to be able to identify. And like you said, what's the cure? It's being vulnerable. It's being able to talk about things. And I completely relate to that idea of, where you'll uncover one thing and you'll clean it up. And then you realize like, you'll clean your whole apartment, and then you'll realize like, dude, there's stuff under the rug, and then you do the, clean the stuff under the rug.
I forgot about the balcony closet. Oh.
Exactly. And I'll even say, I had an incident where, because of my mother, there's a common term in like grief that, a lot of people do with when there's a lack of grief. A lot of times what we do is we do one of two things. We either a thing called enshrinement, which is, we put someone on a pedestal and they were the greatest person ever. They never did anything wrong, right? They were the gift to the world, right? We enshrine them. Or we, on the flip side, it's called bedevilment, right? Like we think, they never did, everything they did was awful. They were a horrible person, but they didn't love me, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of times when we have like a death or a relationship falls through or whatever it is, we go to one of those two things if we haven't gone through, the grief process. We either enshrine them or bedevil them. But I started to realize like my mom died when I was 16. I didn't actually start really processing and doing any type of deep work, any real grief until, I was 5 years sober. So you're talking until I'm like 26, 27. So I went almost 10 years without really doing much. And I had enshrined my mother, and it was, but I didn't have her back. I kind of had lost a lot of the good memories that we had. It was very much just like, I still pictured her as that woman laying on the bed and me holding her hand and her taking her last breath, like that was still the imagery I had when I thought of my mother. Mm-hmm. But then when I started to actually go through the steps, talk about it with my sponsor, do some grieving exercises, started to do this, I was able to kind of break the enshrinement, and I was able to get her back, and I could then remember a lot of the fun times we had and be more appreciative of things. Now, on the flip side, and here's something that is interesting and I wasn't prepared for, but I'm so glad it happened. I had some resentments towards my mother. Mm-hmm. That because I had done this false enshrinement of her, I wasn't addressing. And there were still things that were affecting me in my decision making based on things that my mother had done and said. And I was still kind of enslaved to those things because I hadn't worked through them in a proper way. So it was this weird thing where I was like, all right, great. I finally worked through some of this stuff with my mom. And now I brought her back down to my level and I see her as a human and I have that connection with her in a way I want. But wait a minute, now I'm seeing these resentments that I got to address with her. And like, it doesn't feel good to say, man, I got resentments towards my deceased mother. You feel kind of like an awful person that you're like beating up on the dead. But for me to be able to get healing and freedom from some of these things, I needed to put those resentments as if they were any resentments of a living person. And I needed to then go through, forgive her for certain things, forgive myself for certain things, and really see the situation and do the work so that now I can talk about my mother and it doesn't put me in tears. I can talk about my mother and it doesn't pain me. I don't feel, I don't become this entitled kid that thinks, why me? Why this is off, but it was all through doing the steps. But you can't get to that super deep layer until you do the superficial stuff first. Mm-hmm. So the one thing I'll say is a lot of people, a lot of times we hear, fourth step or, it's so intense, or, people get afraid of it. Or if you're like me, I think one of the reasons it took me so long to do the steps was because I wanted to do it perfectly. Uh-huh. The A student in me wanted to do it so perfectly that I never would have to ever do it again. And I was afraid that what if I also thought, what if I do it and it doesn't help? And then what are my options, right? It's like my brain is crazy, and I'm sure you guys can relate.
We can tell.
And it's like, so that was really my thing where it was, okay, I just need to start going through it. And here's the thing. If you go through and you miss something, it's fine. If you truly missed it. Now, if you're avoiding it, now we got something different to talk to. But just keep doing the work. Freedom comes. We are not meant to live lives trapped by entitlement and trapped by fear and shame and guilt. That is not what we are created to be. And you know what? And if that sounds like a good life to you, then you know what? Like, you can have that one. I don't want it. I want a life where I'm free, where I'm able to process information, where I'm able to be a mature adult, where I'm able to show up powerfully for other people and allow others to love me and show up powerfully for me and for myself. The only way that I learned to do that was through working the steps, working with working with my sponsor, and then being in service and finding gratitude for almost everything in life.
Nice, man. Dude, you come such a long way. I love it. We haven't ever had a guest on that talked about grief like you did, and explaining that, hey man, you had resentments against your dead mother, but you feel guilty, then all of a sudden now you feel guilty if you're going to express those. But working close with somebody, in a program, or, whether it's a therapist or a pastor or mentor, or 12-step sponsor, however you get to it, go and process some of that stuff, with somebody else. And I'll share one of the treatment centers I went to. They had me write a letter to my leg. It was so weird.
Yeah.
So I'm in the trauma class. I'm in the trauma group, and she says, and the counselor goes, okay, I want you to go to your room, and next couple of days I want you to write a letter to your amputated leg. And she goes, we're going to bury that, on Thursday. We're going to bury that. And so I'm in the room. We're standing in a circle. She has me reading the letter, and she goes, okay, we're going to stand around like we're at a gravesite, like we're over the grave of your amputated leg, and I'm thinking, dude, this is so freaking weird. What kind of place is this? But it offers, so the reason I'm saying this is because please have an open mind as you're working. If you or a family member, loved one, are working through recovery or looking at recovery as an option. One, if you take the alcohol and the drugs away, it's okay, because life just will present amazing new stuff. So I was always afraid I'm gonna let something really good go. However, I was able to gain a lot more better stuff by letting it go. But also to be open-minded, to try something new, to try something different, and take direction from other people, because obviously my best thinking got me into rehab. So yeah, no, I think, man, that's so powerful that was the exercise. I mean, like, that's such an amazing exercise to and I'm sure it probably helped you kind of close a chapter and get a little bit of closure, and at least feel like, I experience it a lot of times when people are feeling lost or we're feeling confused or anything. We get in this place where we start asking a lot of questions, which is good, but then we don't take the time to answer any of them. We just start, why is this happening? And what's going on with this? And why do I feel this way? And what's going on in my brain now? And why did this happen? Why did this? Why? How am I going to do it? And we ask questions, which is good, but then we don't take the time to find any answers. So then we just feel overwhelmed, and we feel like, oh my God, I don't know anything. And it's because we haven't found any concrete closure for some of the questions and figured some things out. And so that exercise that you did probably really helped, and I am assuming, but I'm sure it probably was able to give you a little bit of closure, and you probably definitely addressed that issue in a way that you had never addressed it before. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have gotten that really kind of powerful. Yeah, I mean, going to a therapist's office, sitting on a couch for 50 minutes, can do so much, but to actually physically stand there and be surrounded by other people, I think that was an important part of it too, for her to understand, I'm not just reading this to her in our one-on-one meeting. She goes, I want you to bring this to the group, and we're all going to be there to support you. And nobody laughed at me, of course I'm going to go in there. I'm bawling, sobbing, crying, reading this letter, standing in the middle of this room with, these other folks that I barely know, but they're all there to support me. And so it was just a great way to be able to address that. Bro, what a gift this is, man. I just think we're so lucky, we're so lucky, because there's so many people
that just suffer through life in silence, and they don't know where to turn, and they don't have places, or they think they don't have places to go. And we're, us in the addiction world where we have meetings. I mean, there's 3,000 meetings a week in Los Angeles area.
Gosh.
There are there's meetings everywhere. There's, I went to the cigar lounge yesterday, and I ended up talking to the guy next to me who was in recovery. And we had a mini little AA meeting with each other, just kind of talking about things. And it's like the amount of vulnerability and authenticity and real life stuff. Like, to be honest, I don't care how the Detroit Lions are doing this year. I don't care what's going on with the Dodgers. I don't want to sit around and talk about sport. I want to talk about real life stuff, because when you get into this world and you start being able to not only have allowing others to show up for you, but you learn how to show up for other people, like, you don't care about the trivial stuff. Like, we get such a amazing ability to experience all of life. So many people are going through life and all they want to do is experience. All they want to experience is like happy. And that's it. All I want is the happy and joy in that. But and I don't know if this, maybe you guys will be like, man, Phil sounds crazy, but this program, everything has given me the ability to respect and appreciate every emotion that I feel. Not just the good ones, not just the positive ones, but really be able to accepting life on life's terms. And then I also feel like I have tools to, when I am feeling sad or angry or frustrated or hurt, I'm able to I understand feelings in a way that I can then really do a check with myself and be like, okay, what does this mean? Instead of doing every other thing to try to avoid that feeling, whether it's overworking or, watching porn or going on dates or drinking or whatever, I have the ability to enjoy every emotion. And it just makes life that much more meaningful. Mm-hmm. I don't know if any of that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But it did for me in that moment. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. We all just want to avoid, I just want to avoid typically avoid the uncomfortable stuff and stuff that I don't want to feel, and just want to escape from it. And I feel like so many people today just turn to their phone to escape from any uncomfortable feelings. Something's not going right. Turn to my phone. I'll distract myself. I was telling somebody this the other day, how back in the day, before we were also inundated with data and information all the time, if you sat at a stoplight, and you were able to think. You were able to process, kind of like what you're saying. You ask all these questions, but you don't go find the answer. Back in the day, we used to be able to just kind of think things through. You go home and there wasn't 9 million things on TV that hour to look at to distract you. So you could actually process, your feelings, your emotions, your life situation a little bit more effectively. And nowadays, it's just immediately turn to a phone or turn to food or turn to porn or whatever it is to not feel that way. I've had the moments where this happened the other day, and I was so frustrated and laughed at myself. But it's you ever gotten into an elevator, and then somebody else gets in, and you don't say hi within the first 10 seconds, and then the awkwardness just builds the whole elevator ride. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's I've done that where I get in and I'm like, just say hi, Phil. And then you don't say hi, and then you're like, well, is it too late now? I don't know. It's weird. Well, all right, I guess do we go? All right, they're on their phone. Safety, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Oh, good, they're on their phone.
It's how quick are these 11 floors going to go by? But it is so funny because it's almost as if there's moments when we forget how to just be, decent in a quick instant. Like, hey man, what's up? Hey, what's going on? A quick little smile. Hey, how's your day? Just these little things, but we are, definitely, I know I'm guilty of, treating my phone like it's my best friend, and it's just not, I have to constantly remind myself that, that's not me showing up in the world the way that I would like to. So I'd love to say I'm immune from it, but yeah, man, it's, we gotta realize just the power of being able to show up for other people and participating in this thing called life together.
Yep. And participating in life, in my opinion, does not mean participating on social media. And so with that being said, I've been off social media for about a month now. I'm doing a detox.
A nice little cleanse.
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah, it's just like if you just worked out all the time, every free moment you had, you were doing push-ups or squats or doing some kind of exercise. Like, you got to rest at some point,
Yep.
And you're working and you got family life and other extracurricular things going on. I was just like, dude, I can't keep up with it. I'm just getting inundated with stuff. So I've been off for about a month, and it's been awesome.
That's amazing, dude. I'm a firm believer in what I call adult timeouts, where I will,
nice.
I had a surgery about 6 weeks ago. I had a working out injury, and I had to get surgery, and so I was kind of down for a little bit. And I was down for about 5 days, and I couldn't really do much. And it was like, after a few days, I was so re-energized to get back to work and, feeling motivated in a new way. And I was like, man, I need to do this more often. I need to because I, left to my own devices, I will pack 18 hours of work into a day. And I will, and I will go at it, and I love it, and I'll do it. And I do enjoy it. And because I'm very lucky that I've, gotten into a career that I love, and even my passion projects are all things that are just that, they're passion. But I've told myself, every couple of weeks, obviously more, I'd like to take walks or do different things or meditate, but every couple of weeks, I need to book one day where I am not allowed to do anything except for just relax. Amen. And because I'm awful at relaxing, I always want to be on the move. And it's like, because that forcing myself to be still, putting myself in adult timeout makes me slow down, recover, give my body, give my mind the rest it needs. But also it then re-energizes me, because I realize, like, man, I don't like this. I want to work. I like all this stuff. But it gives me the ability to reevaluate, like, hey, are you working in the right directions? Are you going after the right things? It gives me that time to kind of self-reflect and really see, hey, man, how's the strategy going? I got to make sure that I'm not missing the forest through the trees. I always loved this. I'm a Midwest kid, like I said, from Detroit. So everyone jokes about, Midwest, all we want to do is work, and we grew up with that work ethic or whatever. And it's instilled in us, and we have this pride over the Midwest work ethic. But I remember somebody saying this quote, and it was like, and I always mess it up, but it's like, no matter how hard, no matter how fast you're running to see the sunset, you'll never find it in the east. And it's like, if you're running in the wrong direction, it doesn't matter how hard you're working. And a lot of people are working really hard to blind themselves to the fact that they don't actually know what they're working towards. And they're avoiding things. And so it's always really important to look at the things, you almost sometimes look at the stuff where you spend your time that you're good at, and see, are you just there because of comfort? Like for me, I had to identify, like, I love going to the gym, and, the gym is it's a healthy outlet. I get to go, I work out, keep my body in shape, and that's cool. But then there were moments where I had to say, like, am I going to the gym avoiding other things? Am I going to the gym because I'm good at it? Am I going to the gym because I know that that's a place where I'm comfortable? It's a level of comfort. So when I'm feeling stressed and overwhelmed, and there's things that I know I need to be doing, instead of doing them and sitting down and writing, or sitting down and working on things, or sitting down and connecting with someone else, do I run to the gym? Is that a healthy distraction that I'm using? And I had times where I was like, oh man, I need to cut back on the gym. And, so it's just one of these things that we just have to constantly always be taking I've always loved the saying, like, you can't take a shower on Monday, be clean all week. Mm-hmm. You gotta stay in the work. You gotta constantly be staying in the work and reevaluating things, and checking on yourself, and just kind of, like I said, taking your temperature and making sure you're still operating in the way that you should be for the long haul.
Absolutely, man. Great advice. And speaking of, you brought up that quote earlier. You got a quote on your website. It says, you don't have to worry about your reputation when you take ownership of your character. Now, I read that on your website prior to the interview, and now that you're here and I heard your story from you, knowing the type of perfectionist that you were and that you've had to overcome. I mean, your reputation was probably everything. To you, or the way that you were perceived by others. But now, it sounds like you've switched over to, man, if I can just get my character right, then the others, I don't care what other people think of me. That's something I still struggle with. I still, I'm like, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing what I need to be doing, but I still want people, I still want people's approvals. I still have that creeping up. More frequently than I would like. But again, recovery is a process. It's not a, you don't just get there and stay there and maintain there. It's, always looking to keep getting better. Expand a little bit more on the ownership of the character, of someone's character. Definitely. I mean,
it's there's certain things that are outside of our realm of control, AKA 99% of life, right? There's so much is outside. So much as every other, people, places, thing. I think there's so many things that are outside of our realm of control. The only thing we have control over is ourselves. And even that sometimes, I don't know. But no, it's like we control ourselves. And when I'm worried about my reputation, I'm trying to be a people pleaser. When I'm worried about how, and it changes. And that's the thing with a reputation. The reputation changes from person to person because a reputation is all about the perception that someone else has of you. So when you're chasing that, when you're chasing having a good reputation with every person, then you're going around and you're like, you're trying to be what you think they want you to be. And there's so many things that can get lost in that. When you focus on your character is an internal thing with you and your higher power. I always say I only need to be good with two people, myself and my God. And I know if I'm doing things the right way with my God, and I'm doing the good things and the right things for myself, if I'm making sure that my character is in point, the things that I'm doing, I'm behaving, whether you see me on set, whether I'm producing on set, whether I'm speaking at a rehab facility, whether I'm talking at a prison, whether I'm coaching with my clients, whether I'm playing basketball at the park, I'm the same guy. And when I used to drink, that wasn't the case. I would try to be a chameleon and fit in, and I wanted to be the best that I could be in that situation. But now I show up the same way everywhere I go. And I show up, unapologetically as myself. And I work hard on making sure that I'm, I hold myself, to a standard that when I'm, when I'm making mistakes, like I keep note, like, no, that's not the person you said you wanted to be. I've set rules on who I want to be and what I want my life to look like. And I focus on that character and that internal character. And the thing with character is when you develop strong character, when you're a man or a woman of strong character, with people that have great character, you'll have an amazing reputation. Mm-hmm. When your reputation is a byproduct, right? But when you know who you are and you are showing up powerfully and you're doing the right things, you don't really have to worry about the perceptions of other people. And you start to realize that the perceptions of other people actually say more about them than it says about you. Mm-hmm. If someone treats me a certain, Socrates had this great thing where they asked him basically like, man, how do you handle the criticism? Because even in his time, he had people that would, against Socrates and didn't like it. The man was eventually put to death, but he was asked this idea of like, how do you handle your haters almost, and he was like, well, if the criticism is just, then I make changes. And if it's not, then I don't worry about it. And it's like, we take feedback from other people and we process that feedback and we say, is this just? This thing that they're saying, is it true? Am I being rude? Am I being disrespectful? Am I being lazy? Am I not showing up in a great way? Is that true? Yes or no? And look at it objectively. If it is, and you are not showing up the way you need to, we got to work on your character. Start making some changes to build better character. However, if you look at and you're like, no, those things aren't true, then you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about the opinions of people when they're not deep rooted and they don't have strong character, and that's the other thing is like your character is consistent, whether you're dealing with someone that's a jerk or someone that's amazing, somebody that is, a loving, caring person, or somebody that is out there and they're entitled and conceited. When your character is on point, you're showing up the same way in the situation all of the time. When you're worried about your reputation, you're completely just working off of ego, and you're just trying to, prove yourself to others. And the other way that I love to kind of describe it is this idea of I try to make things very binary in my head, with it's either this or that, in terms of, in this moment right now, am I being people pleasing or am I serving people? Because it's hard to do both at the same time. It's almost impossible. And so I always look at that and I'm like, when I'm people pleasing, if I'm trying to please people, it means that I don't feel like I'm enough. It means like I feel like I need to do something to earn your respect, earn your trust, earn your love, I want you to make me feel like I'm okay and I'm accepted. And, I'm coming from a place of less than when I'm trying to be people pleasing. I'm trying to manipulate. And that's not a good space to be. But when I stop and when I go, you know what? I'm here to serve people. This person I'm dealing with right now, how do I serve this person the best way possible? How would the most powerful version of Phil show up right now for this person? And that's when I get into service mind, man, life just gets better. I get better results with everything. I feel better. So I try to, draw the line very distinctly and ask myself really harshly, like, yo, who are you being right now? Are you being a people pleaser or are you trying to serve others?
That's awesome. I love that you say you can't do both. You can't just serve others while pleasing everybody. I heard this. Don't quote me. I don't know if it's the exact quote, but I heard this a couple weeks ago. So I'm not who I think I am. I'm actually not who you think I am. I'm actually who I think you think that I am. It blew my mind at first. I was like, wait a second. So I'm not who I am, or I think I am, and I'm not who you think I am. I'm who I think you think that I am. So if I think that you think I'm this way, I better act that way. Like you said, being a chameleon. Totally, that's me, man. Because I'm thinking who you think I am, so I'm going to be who you think I should be, and then I'm really nobody. And then it's like this constant nebulous of nothingness that I was existing in, and the drugs and alcohol could calm that. Because I never really felt connected, and the drugs and alcohol could numb that out for temporarily time. But that's the joy of recovery is we can get reconnected with ourselves, with a group, a support group, and like you say, the most important thing is with the higher power of your understanding, who I call God. Man, you've got some.
One thing I'll say is there's so much that we don't learn, guys, right? Like, you don't know what you don't know. For every one kid that grew up with a brilliant philosopher, therapist, very emotionally intelligent parent, hey, congratulations. You are the 0.5%, right? The rest of us, like, hey, I love my dad. I love my mother. My stepmother is amazing. I'm very blessed to have a great family. There's a lot of things they didn't learn as well, right? There's a lot of things about grief that I was never taught. There's a lot of things about philosophy, about what is true happiness, there's so much that I didn't know just in my upbringing. And a lot of us are in that boat, you guys. That is not something unique to one person. A lot of us grow up in neighborhoods that aren't maybe they're not positive neighborhoods. Maybe they're not, we're not getting all of the, for us to only be learning from one person or two people, our mom and our dad, our whole lives, like that's only two people's knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge out there in the world. So don't feel bad. Like that's the one thing is there was a moment where when I got sober and I was like, man, I'm broken. Why am I broken and other people are fine? The truth is we're all broken. The truth is like all of us there's so many of us that we're not given those proper skills. And the truth is there's so few people that actually have all of the skills that it only makes sense that not everyone can learn them all at once in their upbringing. The way you were raised is not your fault. However, as an adult, it is our responsibility to develop ourselves into mature adults. And the cool thing with responsibility that I love, and I heard somebody else say this, it's not my own idea, but this idea that, responsibility is the ability to respond. We have an ability to respond to the things that are happening in our lives. When we take ownership of ourselves, we take ownership of our feelings, we stop blaming other people, we own our lives. And we also understand that we don't know everything, and that's fine. And we weren't taught everything, and that's fine. And this is part of us learning more and more and more, and leveling up and learning how to live lives as, happy, fulfilled, powerful, caring, emotional people. And it's like, that's the thing. It's like, I'll say, like, that's what so much of this gave me, was just the ability to start learning. Because as much as my parents did a great job, they don't know everything. So it's like, in the fact that your parents didn't teach you every single little thing, it's okay. It's pretty normal. It's human beings. Like, that's the nice thing, is we have brains and we're able to learn, and we're able to, soak up more stuff. And so don't feel like the way that you were raised is something, inherently wrong in comparison to other people or anything like that. It's like, look, a lot of our upbringings got huge gaps in them, huge emotional gaps, huge maturity gaps, huge, intellectual gaps, and that's fine. But now as adults, we have an ability to respond to those things, and we can get better. And that's what we chase, right? Like, we chase progress rather than perfection. Mm-hmm. And if we continue to progress, and we just try to get a little bit better every single day, and we show up for other people, this life is an absolute beautiful, beautiful life. And I'll tell you what, if you're hearing me speak and you say, cool, bro, sounds good for you, but like, my brain doesn't work that way, like, that's the disease talking. The way that I'm talking, this can be yours. If you want to have this, like, I'm just a kid from Detroit, man. I'm just a kid from Southwest Detroit who wanted everyone to give me everything I wanted really easily. And, I wanted to just be the poster child. I wanted everything handed to me. Like, I'm entitled. I'm self-centered. I'm selfish. I'm very self-seeking. And I've been able to change those things through working the steps, through working this program. And it's in this life, this beautiful life, it is for the taking for all of us.
Absolutely. There's no shortage of miracles in recovery, and there's never going to be any time when they are not available to those who choose to do the work to get to where their higher power is calling them to be. Man, what a message of hope. I think that is just a great way to kind of sum up the interview here. Is just man, if this can be yours, and there is hope out there, even if you've tried before and you failed, even if you tried some other way and you failed, it's okay. Keep trying, try a different way, reach out to somebody new, and just don't ever give up.
That's perfect, man.
Awesome. Hey, Phillip, it has been awesome having you here on the show, dude. I totally relate to you, man. We would have been pretty good friends out there in LA if I was still out there.
Well, no, hey, I really appreciate you guys letting me come on, and it's great talking with you. And to all the listeners out there, man, I really just hang in there, keep at it. You ever need someone to talk to, Phillip Andrew LA at gmail.com. You can always hit me up or find me on social media platforms at Phillip Andrew LA. I'd love to connect with you guys and just hang in there. This life is a beautiful life, man. And yeah, it's there for all of us to have. So thank you so much. It's an honor to be able to talk and to be able to be of service. So thank you guys.
Absolutely, man. Keep being a great shining light for those still struggling, and for me as well, man. I gained some great insights from you. So thank you for your gift of awesomeness to High Sobriety here at Addiction Campuses. As we close out, if something resonated with you that makes you think that you could call in and ask for help, or you have a family member or friend that needs help, please call Addiction Campuses at 844-888-HELP. Again, 844-888-4357. We'll have treatment specialists ready to talk you through whatever you're dealing with. We've been talking with Phillip Andrew on High Sobriety Addiction Campuses. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to High Sobriety. If you or a loved one are struggling with an addiction, we can help. Call our hotline at 844-888-HELP. That's 844-888-4357. Don't wait. Call today, 844-888-HELP. High Sobriety is an Addiction Campuses podcast.